This is where AI creates more problems than it solves. Two managers can use the same AI tool on the same issue and walk away with two different answers that both sound right. That's not an AI problem, my friends. That is a system problem. Over this season, we have looked at hiring, onboarding, training, performance conversations, manager decisions, and documentation, all across the pillars people, training, and benefits. Those can feel like separate problems, but they're not. Each one is a point where the business defines what good looks like. When those definitions are not connected by a shared structure, they begin to drift. And that drift shows up quickly because managers interpret situations differently, decisions vary by shift, and every output, whether written by a person or generated by AI, adds another version of how we do things. That is how a business becomes inconsistent without realizing it. Now, let me frame this properly. I'm Bridget C Lewis, and this is AI in HR, the Rockstar Boss 15, where small business leaders build structure that actually works. Today is not about introducing something new. It's about pulling everything together into one clear operating system. Because AI is not the strategy and it is not the fix. It is a support tool that only works as well as the structure behind it. If that structure is unclear, AI will not simplify your business. It will multiply the inconsistencies that are already there. Here's a real moment. It's a late evening at a mid-sized hotel. A front desk agent is handling a busy check-in while a new hire shadows them. A regular guest arrives and they're upset. Their preferred room was taken out of service earlier for a temperature issue, and the backup option is tied up from a late checkout. The agent apologizes and offers a small recovery. The supervisor sees what's happening, steps in, and confirms that the room is out of service and assigns a clean, available option. Housekeeping is then asked to rush and get the original room back in service. Maintenance is looped in to confirm the temperature status. Everyone moves quickly, the guest is reaccommodated, and the situation is handled well. Nothing about that moment feels unusual. In fact, it feels like a strong shift that's under pressure. Everyone did something right. The manager made a decision, housekeeping responded quickly, maintenance confirmed and resolved the temperature issue, the team moved on. That is what good looks like in motion. But now step back and look at what just happened across the system. The new hire just learned what good looks like, but that's based on one manager's version of it. Housekeeping responded to a rush, but what does a rush actually mean? Maintenance addressed the issue, but was the connection between the problem and the impact to the guest acknowledged? And when the shift ends, what notes will actually get captured to connect the issue, the response, and the outcome? See, the issue is not that anything was done wrong. The issue is that none of it is connected. Individually, each action makes sense. Collectively, they do not form a consistent pattern that the business can reuse. Now, fast forward a few weeks, the same situation shows up again during a different shift. A different agent handles the guest. A different supervisor makes the call for recovery. The new hire, now on their own, handles it the way they remember seeing it done. The response is reasonable, but it's not the same. And leadership fills the gap because they cannot clearly trace how the situation is being handled or why the outcomes keep varying. The truth of what's happening here is the system is reinforcing something different every time the situation occurs. And that, my friend, is exactly where AI either becomes useful or it becomes noise. Now, here is the core leadership idea. Everything we cover this season leads to this very point. Your operating system is how your business runs when you're not present. It holds your hiring standards, onboarding experiences, training expectations, manager decisions, documentation, all of that in alignment. It is also how your business remembers what was actually captured and made usable for the next situation. AI does not replace that system. AI actually depends on this system. So if your business cannot consistently define what happened, why it mattered, and what should happen next, then AI will generate outputs that sound helpful but do not connect. Conversely, when the system is clear, AI reinforces those standards, support decisions, and extends the structure across every shift. That is the difference. So this is where the gap between activity and system shows up. In the moment, everything feels handled. A guest concern is resolved, a note is entered somewhere, a manager has a conversation, and the team moves on. But when you look across shifts, you start noticing changes in the pattern, such as hiring varies depending on who is interviewing. Onboarding feels different from one manager to the next. Training becomes interpretation. Manager judgment replaces shared standards. Documentation becomes inconsistent. The business stays busy, but it's not building consistency. It is reacting and solving the same problem in slightly different ways each time. In a hotel, that shows up quickly because every shift creates another opportunity for variation. AI can make the outputs look better, but without a consistent system, it does not improve the operation. It adds content without adding clarity. On the other hand, the impact shows up in a more subtle way. Leaders keep stepping back in instead of trusting decisions. Managers hesitate because they're not sure what right looks like. New hires rely on memory instead of a clear reference. The business becomes dependent on who is on shift, not on how the system is designed. And that's a huge cost. Even when things are handled well, they're not building consistency. The business stays active, but it doesn't really get stronger. And that's a gap. However, when the operating system is clear, the work connects and consistency becomes part of how the business runs. So let's make this practical. We're going to take everything we have covered this season and bring it into one structure that your business can actually use. The goal is not to generate ideas or suggestions. The goal is to define how a real situation is captured, organized, and turned into something repeatable. Because once that structure is clear, AI can support the way your business is supposed to run. So let's put this into practice. So we're taking the same situation we just discussed and capturing it in a way that the business can use. Right now, we have activity, but what we need is structure. We are a mid-sized hotel with multiple locations, multiple shifts, different managers making decisions in real time, front desk, housekeeping, and maintenance all involved. And this is not a one-time issue, it's a repeated pattern. So let's document what is actually happening. A guest arrives for check-in, the room is not ready. That creates a service recovery moment. And here is where the inconsistency starts. One manager offers a small recovery. Another upgrades the room. Another escalates immediately. Another manager manages expectations differently. All of those responses are reasonable, but they are not the same. So we are not just capturing the situation, we have to capture the variation as well. The issue is not effort, the issue is the lack of a shared approach. Now let's tighten this. The business is handling each part separately instead of as one connected system. The situation is identified one way, the decisions are made another way. Departments are responding on their own signals, and documentation does not tie it all together. So instead of one flow, you have disconnected pieces. And what we need is a structure that connects everything together. So a clear definition of the situation, a consistent decision, the right signals across departments, and a way to capture the full outcome for the next time. That is what we're asking the AI to build. And that is what we're handing it, a real situation with clear expectations. Now let's look at what it gives us. First, you're going to see the clarifying questions. Remember, we always ask for those clarifying questions. This matters because without them, the AI will guess, and guesses lead to misalignment. All right, so we have the clarifying questions, we answer them, give the answers back to the AI, and now what you see is structure. A defined service recovery framework replaces individual judgment. Now managers are aligned instead of deciding differently in the moment. You will also see clear decision guidelines, when to offer recovery, what level to offer, when to escalate. That removes the interpretation. You will see cross-departmental coordination. So housekeeping and maintenance are responding to clear signals and not individual requests. And you will see structured documentation, what happened, why it matters, what was done, what should happen next time. This is where the business starts to remember. So when the situation happens again, the response is not based on memory. It's based on structure. Operationally, that changes everything. Decisions are faster, managers are aligned, new hires have something clear to follow, leadership is not stepping back to re-explain. This is how structure turns into consistency, and this is where AI becomes useful, not because it gave you a good answer, but because it helped you build something that your business can use every day. All right, so let's bring this all together. Across this season, we have looked at challenges experienced at different parts of the business, whether it's hiring, onboarding, training, manager decisions, documentation. What we're seeing now is that those are not separate challenges. They are all part of the same system. If that system is not defined, every part of it will drift. And when it drifts, the business becomes dependent on individual judgment instead of a shared structure. AI does not fix that. AI will reflect that. But when the system is clear, AI can reinforce it, extend it, and help the business operate with consistency across every shift. And that's the difference. So as you think about your own business, the question is not just where can we use AI? The real question needs to be, where are things unclear in our system? Because that is where inconsistency is already showing up. And that's where structure will have the biggest impact. So you start there. Because, my friends, better systems build better workplaces.